The University of Virginia, home to 21,000 students, produces huge amounts of waste on a daily basis. 1,000 to 2,000 students enter Newcomb, O'Hill, and Runk at lunchtime, throwing away individually 0.192 pounds of food at every single meal. Food waste is not the only contributor to the amount of waste that this university produces. Medical waste. The science departments have to dispose of gloves, syringes, glass beakers, and containers. Recyclable waste. Cardboard, glass, and plastic are all dumped around grounds. We see waste every day, but are we aware of it? How do you define waste?
I think waste for me is anything that goes unused. So like waste of time, that's time that could have been productive. Or food waste, like when I don't finish all of my milk before it sours.
I consider waste to be anything that you throw away that isn't going to be used anymore by you or anybody else. So like recyclables I wouldn't consider waste, but just regular trash I would.
Just like things that we throw away or don't use.
Oh God. In like what context?
So waste is all the resources that are no longer useful to our production.
What comes to mind when you think of waste?
Trash. Trash comes to mind, to be honest. Poop. That's about it.
I think of food because every time I go into O'Hill or other dining halls, I see a lot of like full plates on the rotating.
Where do you think waste at UVA goes?
Probably to a landfill. Yeah.
To a landfill somewhere? I don't know.
Probably gets hauled out to a landfill eventually. So that's for trash and non-recyclables. And then for recyclables, I believe it goes to a recycling plant.
Waste on grounds appears in many forms, like food waste, chemical waste, and recyclables. Generally, these students talk about their experiences in dining halls and places of residency. To gain a different perspective, we asked some professionals in their respective field to get their expertise of how to deal with waste in everyday life and how we should handle different types of waste at UVA.
MSW is typically hauled to the transfer station either at Vanderlyn Recycling Facility in Fluvanna or to the Greene County Transfer Station, where it eventually ends up in landfill at Amelia County Waste Management's mega landfill. The recycling commodities are typically run through Sunoco Recycling and then processed and shipped around the world or in domestic mills and markets. We would like to be able to reduce our 8,000 tons of landfillable waste from 2015 to less than 2,000 tons by 2035. We're making a net impact to reduce carbon emissions, nitrogen content. We're also looking at saving fuels and energy with everything that we put our hands on to recycle and touch. We end up, creating those conveniences. Several years ago, we did a cost comparison for waste versus recycling, and found that we created a net ballpark $750,000 cost avoidance for a year by recycling the amount of materials instead of sending it to landfill.
I take care of all of the waste that's generated in the organic chemistry labs throughout the semester. Usually we generate approximately 100 gallons of waste each semester that's considered hazardous waste. When the students are doing lab, they collect any hazardous waste into this container or a container like this. When the container gets close to being full, then I replace it out with another one, and then I characterize what's inside of the container based on what experiment they were running at a particular time when they were generating the waste. And I fill out one of these forms that characterizes what's inside, and I send it to environmental health and safety. They come and pick it up. Well, I would give our labs an A. We're using at times very hazardous chemicals, but we try to minimize the types of hazardous chemicals that we use here. We've done what we've tried to call green chemistry. We've tried to get rid of some really bad, dangerous reagents and replace them with more environmentally friendly reagents. So I don't know how you would get it to be an A+ unless somebody figured out a way to do chemistry without the chemicals.
Sure. So I am Samantha Jameson. I'm the sustainability coordinator with UVA Dining. A big part of my job is running the waste minimization programs across 24 locations at UVA. So our excess food scraps and food trimmings all get composted behind the scenes and picked up by Black Bear Composting, a local composting company, and transported to their facility in Cremora, just over the mountain. To be honest, there's not a lot of excess waste. So our teams work really hard for source reduction. We follow the EPA food waste recovery hierarchy, and so food reduction is the priority. And so that means forecasting, planning for exactly how many people are going to come into the dining rooms and providing that much food. If there is excess waste in the dining rooms, we have a partnership with Campus Kitchens, and so we can call them and they will coordinate a pickup, and then they re-prepare the meals that we have into single portion meals as donations from Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. For post-consumer food waste, we have two options, both in West Range Cafe and Fine Arts Cafe. And so students can go there, and there's a sorting facility for, or a sorting receptacle for recycling, composting, and landfill. All of our clamshells and our wares are compostable on grounds. And then once that makes it into the bin, again, Black Bear Composting comes and picks it up. They have a commercial facility in Cremora where it gets turned into beautiful compost and then returned to our UVA community gardens and our farm. I'm very proud of UVA Dining's food waste management tools. We have partnered with LeanPath, and so LeanPath is a tool that tracks all pre-consumer and post-consumer waste in our residential dining rooms and our top 7 busiest dining locations, including our catering, concessions, and the PAV, all the PAV locations. So what this does is it tracks all of the weight for all the food prepared in the dining rooms, and then allows us to forecast based on the number of students that come into the dining rooms, and allows us to more effectively prepare meals. Since 2014, UVA Dining has maintained a designation for our waste minimization practices from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. So I would say this gives us an A not only for our efforts to reduce waste, but also to divert waste from the landfill. Right now we're about over 90% diversion from the landfill, which is exciting. Since partnering with LeanPath in 2016, we've actually seen a 50% reduction in food waste across our top 7 busiest locations.
Of course, it is important to get the input of UVA employees for us to understand how the system works, but we must also take their judgments with a grain of salt, considering that they are likely in too close to be able to give an objective assessment of the university's waste management system. Of course, we as students are all part of the system as well, but this doesn't have to be a bad thing. The most effective change can come from the inside. UVA has been given gold status by the Organization for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, but there are many significant improvements and infrastructure changes needed before we can truly call our grounds sustainable. The first step is to realize the many ways that we contribute to the problem of waste creation. In our culture, it is often far too easy for people to consume and dispose of everything without being forced to think about the implications of their actions. In addition to the small changes and increased efficiency that we can all make in our personal lives, we must make it known to the university that its students care about the issue of waste reduction, because only this kind of lobbying will force those in charge to make the more significant large-scale changes that will have long-lasting effects on UVA.
Simple actions can individually be taken to reduce the waste around grounds and to help the recycling process. It is important to understand the different types of waste and which kinds of containers they should be thrown in. Other actions can be taken to reduce wastage. For starters, UVA has events like Earth Week to encourage students to be more considerate of the environment. Events such as on-grounds farmers markets, bike workshops, pop-up composting, and sustainability panels are just a few to encourage environmentally friendly behaviors. Reducing waste is just one of many goals we have to make grounds greener. Concerning sustainability specifically on grounds, UVA has an official goal in place, reaching to reduce carbon emissions by 25% from 2009 to 2025, water waste by 25% from 2010 to 2035, and solid waste by 50% from 2014 to 2035. To reach these ambitious goals, it is important for community members and students to have the infrastructure available to them to make these choices, as well as having the accountability to make grounds a better, greener place.